Why do you pray? I'd love to hear from you all. When you pray, why are you praying?
I think it's a form of therapy. It's self-therapy.
Okay, self-therapy. I love it. I would agree with that. What else? Why do you pray?
Connect with God.
Connect with God. Yes. Who else? Why do you pray? There's no wrong answers, because your reason for praying is exactly why you should be praying. So this isn't where I say, oh yeah, trick question. This is, but just curious. Why, if anyone else wants to share, why do you pray?
Yeah, I'd like to raise my vibration.
Raise your vibration, yeah. Yeah. So therapy, raising vibration, connect, that's all of those are the right reasons. I think I'm gonna put this down here. All of those are reasons that are important to pray. So, you know, when I brought this topic a couple of weeks ago, I brought it from the interfaith perspective, because that's my background, right? Just to look at what are the commonalities with the world's faith traditions, and where are there opportunities for us to learn things that can help us in our own practice. Because at the end of the day, we're all here because we want to feel better, we want to do better, we want to evolve. That may mean different things to each one of us, but I don't think anyone showed up tonight to feel bad. Like, nobody showed up tonight to go backwards, right? I think we're all here by the intention that we've set that we want to improve, right? Whatever, even though your version of improvement might be different than mine, it doesn't really matter. We're all here because we want to improve. So there's some commonality that we have already in this community. And so what I'm presenting is some opportunities for us to look, kind of like a cafeteria, is to look, you look at all the rows of food and you only pick the ones you want, right? So there's some new ideas presented here that are new to this community, maybe not. But if you see something that you think could be helpful, then you grab it and put it on your plate. And then if not, you don't, right? I want to honor your free will, as I learned to be the kind of person that honors free will. And so I looked at, part of my own training is as an interfaith minister is to study what are the commonalities in the world's faith traditions. And as you can see, looking at 4 major faith traditions on the planet, and there's some, right, of their stated purposes for praying is a lot of what you all said, right? In the Baha'i faith, it's to get closer to God, right? And also to improve personal conduct, to improve our own behavior, and also to request help, right? So that's the Baha'i faith. In Christianity, there's also, these are just some, it's not every reason, but in Christianity, it's the same thing, right? We want to get closer to God. But also there's more like this strength and hope, right, that we want. And also request help. I think this is still the same. When we say we're going for therapy, that's because we want it, right? That's when I go to therapy, it's because I want help, right? So I think this is a common theme. In Hinduism, it starts to deviate a little bit, where there's this idea of wanting to show love and devotion. And the Hindu practice of puja, which is a community prayer ritual with a lot of singing and music and dancing. It's like a celebration, but it's all based on prayer with this idea to show devotion, right? But it's also to connect and request help. So you're starting to see the theme, right? Islam, same thing. Worship God. Similar to the Baha'i faith is to avoid misconduct. So Muslims, as you're probably aware, pray a minimum of 5 times a day. And the prayer service, the salat service, is not short. It's actually quite lengthy. It's a minimum of about 10 minutes. So if you do the math on that, that's like almost an hour a day that your average Muslim is spending time in prayer. And the thinking is, during that hour, spread across the day, because that hour is broken up into 5 increments. And then there's a preparatory ritual that also adds to that time. And then there's a post-prayer, ritual. While you're doing all that, it's kind of hard to be making mischief, right? Your energy is devoted towards your prayer time. So there is actually a correlation between increased amount of time in prayer and improved conduct. This is what other faith traditions are showing us. I'm just saying that this is, and these are all thousands of years old, right? So it's something for us to look at, because as we are ordering from this cafeteria of new thoughts for us to use, should it feel like something we'd like to adopt that can help us evolve, it's good for us to look at outside of our normal sphere. So from the affirmative prayer perspective, as I said, we'll go a little bit deeper than we did the last time I spoke about this. Here are some of the purposes of affirmative prayer. It's a little different than the request help, right? So the first is to place our attention, is to turn our attention from the world outside and from the physical existence, is to place our attention on the divine presence within. Within. That's like the first major deviation, if you will, or separation, the first delineation, if you will. It's a better word. Because we're not requesting help, right? Because we're going within to activate that which is already within us from this point of view. And it's not looking outside of ourselves to show devotion and a ritual to an entity or a being that's outside of us. The thinking of the new thought style affirmative prayers that we're going within for the purposes of, and I think it's Ejimara, you talked about wanting to raise your vibration, right? It's to transform and elevate our consciousness. Now, if you look, it's really not that different from what everyone else is saying, right? Because if you're going to improve your conduct, that actually is a transformation of our consciousness, right? Because our consciousness is what produces our conduct. It's our consciousness that is informing what we think, say, and do. So the difference is, in the previous examples, we're looking at, I want to pray for the end results. Whereas from the affirmative prayer, we're praying from the beginning. Right? We're praying to shift what produces the end result instead of trying to change the end result. Does that make sense? Right? And most importantly is to gather power and strength for our soul, because what happens when we need therapy or want to raise our vibration or want to request help, we feel helpless, or we feel low, or we feel as a word I learned recently, when one goes to therapy, is dysregulated, right? I love that word. It means that nothing's really wrong with you, or just not quite regulated. I think actually it was you that said that word, dysregulated, right? And so all of these temporary states of being would benefit from our active conscious connection with the divine presence within, if that was something we were open to and used our free will to decide to investigate. It is up to us. But I love this quote from Emmett Fox, he's the founder of Divine Science. We didn't talk about him in the first talk about this because there's a lot of new thought leaders, and in 30 minutes it's impossible to go through the entire slate of souls that brought a lot of good wisdom. But he's the founder of Divine Science, and he wrote a really great book called The Golden Key, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But I love that he says that the best way to meet any problem is to rise in consciousness. Usually we meet a problem by trying to solve the problem. And the problem is the end result of consciousness. It's not the cause, it's the effect. So he's talking about, let's go to the cause first. It can be made simple thinking about a headache, right? We treat headaches with aspirin, right? That's an American standard. You treat your headache with aspirin. And will it take away the headache? 9 out of 10 times, depending on the headache, yes, it will. But we're treating the effect. We don't know if that headache is caused from poor sleep or poor diet or high stress levels or pollution in the environment or any number of causes that will continue to cause that effect. Right? So we can start to look at affirmative prayer being less of an aspirin and more of a holistic medicinal approach to the dysregulation and imbalance and feeling low, or right? It's something to think about. My invitation is think about it. So we talked about this last time I spoke, but I want to bring it up again just so you all can see it as a review, right? That there are 6 steps to affirmative prayer. And if you didn't hear it, then good, you're seeing it for the first time. But there's 6 steps. And there are multiple schools of new thought. So there's like the Unity school of thought. There's the Science of Mind, or Centers for Spiritual Living, as they're called now. They call it spiritual mind treatment or spiritual treatment. It's the same exact steps. They're literally identical, except in the Unity version, they add this opening, which is starting with the breath. So I just want to walk us through, bless you, I just want to walk us through this again for those of you that weren't here, and then for those of you that were here, this is a good reminder, right? So it starts with centering ourselves, because sometimes we just jump into prayer. And I don't know about y'all, but sometimes I find myself like phoning it in. That's the term we use, right? Like I start praying, I'm saying words, but I'm not feeling like a connection. But I'm talking, I'm saying the words. If someone looking at me would say, oh, she's praying. But for me, it's not, I'm not feeling it, right? I'm just not feeling it. So but if we prepare ourselves to pray, that's another lesson we can learn from Muslims. They go through an elaborate ritual before they even start praying, a washing of different parts of the body in different order, and then there's intention behind each part of the body that's washed. So by the time they land on the prayer rug, they're ready, right? There's a preparatory element. I'm not saying that we need to do that, but I'm saying what can we learn from that? What could we learn that we would be willing to choose and apply ourselves? It's just something to think about. And then the recognition that God is everywhere. Now we say this, right? We say, oh, God is omnipresent, right? In Christianity and in Spiritism, this is not something that we disagree with, right? We agree that God is omnipresent. However, we tend to exclude ourselves from that, everywhere except here. And then the people we don't like, everywhere except there, right? Or the thing we don't like, everything except in that thing. Or in the, right? We get real conditional about God's omnipresence. And that's a choice, right? We have our free will to choose that. We also have the choice, if we're open to making a different choice, thinking a new thought, is to really imagine, well, if God is everywhere, then God's here too, and God's there too, and if God is everywhere, then it makes perfect sense that I must be one with that thing that's everywhere. I'm also here, and if God is everywhere, then it makes sense from this statement that God must be here too. It's hard for us. I can't possibly force anyone to believe that. My invitation is to think about it logically, whether God being omnipresent means that you're excluded, or that thing you don't like is excluded, or that situation that you don't like is excluded. And then should those first three make sense, then the fourth part is the affirmation, right? This is where we state what we actually want. So many of us, our prayers go like this. Dear God, I'm feeling sick today. I want to be better. Please heal me. Or, dear God, I need a job. I need to pay my bills. Can you please help me get a job? Or, dear God, my daughter is sick. I really need her to get better. Could you please send 20,000 angels and help her get better? Right? We all have a fancy way that we do it, or a special way that's unique to us. Or, oh my God, if I have to do this again, that's a prayer too. Or, God, if you just give me this, then I promise I'll do that. Right? This is some I'm being a little silly, but it's to soften the silliness of how we pray, right? Versus having a positive statement of the desired outcome. And we talked about this before. We're going to go into a little bit deeper today. And then, giving thanks for the outcome, which is appreciation, and then release, which is also a hard part. Because if I say, dear God, if you give me this, I'll give you that, we are 100% attached to the outcome, because I want this. If we say, my daughter is sick, I need you to make her better, we are attached to a complete reversal of whatever physical or mental or emotional condition that we're complaining about. We are attached to it being the way we want it. So affirmative prayer is a little different, because underneath it is this idea of this or better. Because when we get too specific about the outcome, we are completely limiting the possibility that something even greater, I don't know why that's doing that, something even greater could come to us. So let's talk about what the elements of an affirmation are, because that's where we get lost. Yes?
Before use the word God a lot.
Sure.
Pray God. Could it be like, could you replace that with spiritual friends or dear universe or any other?
Absolutely, because in Islam they call God Allah, and in most sects of Christianity we call God Jesus, right? There's whatever word we use does not change the element of that divine energy that we call God here in Spiritism. This is a Spiritist center, so I'm using the term that we use here. But there are many, many, many names across many communities for this one presence that is everywhere, and I'm calling it God today. But does God change if we call it by a different name? No. And is it complete? Is our experience of our inner divinity different if we use a different name? No. So yes, I'm sorry. So the answer is yes. We can call God literally anything we want, as long as we are clear that it is the infinite divine energy that we are referring to, right? So just using God for simplicity today. All right, so the elements of an affirmation. So I don't want to be sick anymore is not an affirmation. I want my therapy to work. I don't want to have a low vibration. Like talking about what we don't want is not an affirmation, right? It's stating it in the positive. We want to state the opposite of whatever that condition is, right? And frame it in the present moment. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. So anyone seen The Secret or know about The Secret, right? Have you seen this? Okay, so the problem with The Secret is that for us to say right now, I am rich, and my bank account is overdrawn, I know fully well that my bank account is over. I can't even believe that for a second. And the power of affirmations is actually your belief and your absolute knowing the truth. Now, granted, there are multi-dimensions where money exists. There's a whole lot you could do with that. But the reality is, in this awareness, in this dimension, we have a bank account that has a certain amount of money in it, okay? And we draw on that bank account to pay bills. That's like part of the basics of our existence. So unless you are really advanced in our capacity to understand the multi-dimensional nature of our existence, that won't work. That won't work. As will tell you every single person who said, I am rich after reading The Secret and is still broke, all right?
99.9.
So this is not what we're saying here.
But
yes.
you are like compare wealth to a material thing, money,
Mm-hmm.
in physical concrete that is,
Mm-hmm.
and like I'm rich means okay, we're here and now in this moment. We're health. We're
100%. 100%.
Like we're so rich to being able to communicate, to listen, to smell, to.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm referring to the people that say I'm rich in wealth right now, right? Because the proper way, not the proper way, an effective way would be to affirm the abundance of the universe and the infinite nature of goodness, right? That would include all of those things, and not try to specifically address the bank account and saying that the bank account itself is different than it actually is. So yes, that's.
But that's the same thing that you were talking about, is to concentrate on it, is concentrate on the outcome.
That's right, and so exactly. So and here's how that works, right? So if we could take money, but I actually would like to take a different, give you a different example. Let's look at health. Let's look at health, because that's more personal than money. Money is something that's outside of us. Let's look at health, okay? So, anyone heard of Louise Hay? Have you ever heard? Okay, right? Okay, so yes, so Louise Hay, her book Heal Your Life is full of affirmations, right? But her affirmations don't say, if you have a broken leg, my leg is whole, perfect, and complete, and is not broken. That's not the affirmation. And if those of you that were here a few weeks ago, Myrtle Fillmore, one of the founders of Unity, that whole church was founded because she was sick from tuberculosis. I can never say that word. But she didn't say, I no longer have tuberculosis. What she said was, I'm a child of God, and illness cannot live in me. I'm a child of God, and illness cannot live in me. I'm a child of God, illness cannot live in me, right? So she didn't say my tuberculosis is gone. She didn't say she wasn't broke and said my bank account has $10,000. She simply stated a divine truth. Because in every situation, what we want to do is make the shift from the physical condition to the divine truth. Right? And that's where you were alluding to when you talked about, but there's abundant health, there's all these, that's where we want to go. So it's not the bank account has XYZ or the leg is now this. There is an opposite truth that is a divine the divine reality that is the opposite of the human condition that we see. But we have to make that shift. That's an absolute requirement in order to make an affirmation that works. Because God is greater, or whatever we call God, however you talk to God, however you refer to God, is greater than a bank account. A bank account is one tiny element in this massive, infinite creation, right? The leg is just one leg of one physical envelope among thousands. Of course, the omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent one, which includes us, is greater than that one thing. So that's where we go. And so here's some examples. For some of you said that you've read Louise Hay, right? Here's some examples from Louise Hay, right? She says that new thought patterns or positive affirmations can heal and relax your body. But with each one of these are just a tiny little excerpt, right, from different areas of the body. None of these are addressing the physical body part that it's designed to address. In the head, I relax into the flow of life and let life flow through me with ease. She's not saying my headache is gone or my brain is now, right? There's no specifics of the physical condition. The key here is to state the divine truth that is the opposite of the human condition. So in each one of these affirmations, I'm not going to read them all. You can read them for yourself, take a picture, read it later. But in each one of them, there's no claiming of the physical condition. And if you read her book, it's a great book. She talks about each part of the body representing different emotional states, and it's a great book. But the point here is that for each one of those, it's the mental shift from the human condition to the divine condition. It's thinking a new thought about what is happening, right? So great book, You Can Heal Your Life. I highly recommend it. But if you look at this, what's powerful is each one of these things, we can say them and have far more faith that we have agency over it than we do over, my leg is broken, now it's no longer broken. I can shake this cast off. Now, we do have the power to do that. We're just not there yet, right? In our current level, until we can materialize, right? Which we all have, there's the potential to do that. Until we can do that, we can think like this, and it can be a bridge to get us to the capacity to see the divine reality more quickly than we become attached to the physical reality. All right, so I want to give us a couple of examples and then we'll close. It's not a long talk tonight. So for those of you that are interested in practice out of your own free will, should you be interested, this is a common template that you can use if you want to try affirmative prayer. And what is blank here is the affirmation, right? Because you just fill in the blank. What is the condition that you want to transform your consciousness about? What is the condition that you want to claim the divine reality for? Well, only you know that, right? Is it health? Is it, is it thinking? Is it study? Is it service? Is it love? Is it relationships? Like, we have a myriad of human conditions that trouble us that we have no problem going, dear God, if you would just fix this. Right? So it's those things. We can take each one and in our own private time, should we choose to do so, think about what is that divine opposite and affirm it. So and so this is what the prayer might sound like. Let's say I am having a bank account problem, right? Let's go back to the original thing, right? I breathe deeply, connecting with the bright light within. And I know that God is all there is, everywhere present. I know that God is present in me right now. It is in me, as me, in everyone, all one. And now I'm in the affirmation, so I'm going to just back up a little bit so you can see, right? We're doing opening, recognition, alignment, right? So now I'm affirmation, the positive statement, right? So I speak my word as a powerful statement of truth about the condition of my bank account, which in no way represents the abundance of the universe. I claim my oneness with the abundance of the universe, the infinite nature of all that is good in this world. I align my thinking with the abundant universe. I align my desire to serve with the abundant universe. I align myself with every opportunity to give my services in service to humanity with the abundance of good. You see the difference in saying, instead of saying, please help me, my bank account is overdrawn and I'm going to need at least $5,000 to pay my bills. If you could get that to me, God, I will do anything you want, right? You see the difference, right? And I'm so grateful for my divine nature, for the transformation in consciousness that this prayer opens in me. Not, I'm so grateful for the $5,000. Because of the not attach, because if I attach only to 5,000, that means $10,000 will never find me if I can only see 5,000. Right? Now, I'm making this about money because that's what came up and what, we understand that. But if I say my leg is good, what's to stop the other leg from going bad? You see what I mean? It's getting specific about the human condition will never get us closer to the divine truth that is its opposite. The idea is to align ourselves with the divine and become grateful for our divine nature, for the transformation of my consciousness. Most importantly, releasing all attachment to the outcome and the specifics, right? That way, because we leave open this or better, this or better, this or better, right? Knowing that all is well in my world, and so it is, right? So that's the template. However, here's what happens. We get stuck, we need therapy, our vibration drops, we need help, and we forget all of this. We forget, right? Now, I've memorized it because I've taught this for so many years, so I have it in me. But if you haven't taught this for years, or if you haven't practiced it for years, what do? We get stuck. Well, luckily, there's a golden key. This is written by Emmett Fox. I've talked about this before. He literally says, when all else fails, just stop thinking about the problem and start thinking about God. That's it. Just start thinking about God. So, all of the things that God is to us. That's it. Just start thinking about all the attributes of God. Then we think about the problem. We say, oh yeah, I'm back to the problem. Just start thinking about God. Imagine, right now, just take a minute. Think about God. Think about the attributes of God. God is omnipresent, omnipotent, omnipresent, present everywhere. Omnipotent, all-powerful. Omniscient, all-knowing. What else? What else? Throw some out there. What else do we think of? What other attributes of God do we... Let that go. Love. Okay. So all loving. What else?
Love, goodness.
Goodness. All goodness.
Light.
All light, peace. So let's stop there. Power, presence, light, peace, love. What if we just cycled through that? The problem's going to try to sneak its way in, and we go back. Light, love, peace, power, presence, knowing. Can you imagine for a minute? That might change how we think about that problem when we're thinking about all the attributes of it. It's really, it really is that simple. It really is that simple. That's the golden key. Yeah.
A child today in Palestine being bombarded by a powerful arm from Israel, totally they are vulnerable. Could use this to get out of that condition of a massacre or a genocide?
So you've asked me this before. You've asked me a similar question. I'm going to give you the same answer I gave you last time. The first time you asked me a question like this, we were talking about suffering and how to come out of suffering. And you said, well, what you're saying worked for people who've been enslaved. And what I said then is the same thing I'm going to say now, is that there's something called the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So spiritual truths like this are for people whose basic needs have been met. The basic needs of Maslow are safety, food, clothing, and shelter. If someone does not, survival, right? So if someone is not having those needs met, they don't need this. They need food, clothing, shelter, and safety. So this is not even in the same city, right? I would never bring something like this to people who are in a life-threatening situation. What people need is safety and help. Yeah.
We're in a very comfortable position with our prayer. Interfere in that situation back there and help?
So interfering is a thing that we have to be careful about because because free will is the one gift that we all have. So, but what we can do anything we want because we all have free will. how I think about this is that when we pray by ourselves, there's a certain amount of power that's generated. When we pray collectively, a lot of light is generated. And we've even seen this, like in Nossa Casa, when during the Second World War, a lot of people were praying and they could see the light, the bright, intense light being generated from Nossa Casa. They saw that on the surface of the earth. So collectively, our prayers generate a lot of light. And when we collectively pray to raise the vibration of love, we can produce a loving vibration that has the capacity to attract those who are interested in a loving vibration. Will that change people who are committed to doing something different? I don't have the answer to that. I know what I can do myself. I know that praying in a community is powerful, just like meditating alone is not the same as meditating in a group. But as far as doing something like that with the intention of changing what world leaders are doing, yeah, I don't have that. Yes.
We cannot change others, but we can change the way that we feel. For example, if a child, whoever in a situation like very threatening situation, when we pray, that makes us strong to go through that situation, then we have to go in and change the way that we feel about the situation.
Yeah. But I want to honor your question, because I think I mean, anyone who reads the news knows that there's tragedies happening on the surface of this planet right now, right? So I want to make sure that I'm giving the appropriate honor and reverence to what you're saying, right? And I think something for us to think about is that our thought forms are very powerful, and world leaders who are making decisions that cause suffering are the recipients of a lot of thought forms. In Buddhism, they call it arrows, right? That when we think negative thoughts about someone, we're like sending like these arrows. So one of the things, and imagine if you're a person and you're making decisions that you think are the right decisions, but you're receiving all these mental arrows from thousands of people all over the planet. That's a pretty intense position to be in if we just think like one human being or one soul to another. So one thing we can do is stop sending those arrows, right? Is to hold the consciousness that that person or that decision maker or that leader or those soldiers, that they are humans, that God is not separated from them either. And to continue to affirm, our oneness with all that is good, that raises our consciousness, and we contribute to the overall consciousness of the planet, and we stop sending negative energy to people who are making decisions that we don't approve of. That's the best I can say from my perspective and my level of understanding. But I'm sure there are people with different perspectives. But I wanted to honor that, because I think we all heard a little bit, when we think about that, what is happening. But yeah. So I'm getting ready to close here so we can have our passes. I want to just going back to the different elements of God. Sometimes it gets hard. We struggled a little bit to come up with 5. We came up with 5. Love, peace, power, presence, knowing. I think there was one more. Maybe we came up with 6. Calm. Light. Okay? Did you all know that in Islam they have come up with 99 names for God that each represent one of the attributes? Here are just 10. Just 10. Just 10. The beneficent, the merciful, the giver of peace, the mighty one, the evolver or the maker, the great forgiver, the opener, the all-knowing one, the exalter, the generous, the bountiful. These are all elements of the divine that are in us. We all have the capacity to be beneficent, merciful, to be the giver of peace. How often are we actually intentionally the giver of peace? Or are we the taker of peace in all the decisions we made today? Were we giving peace or taking peace? I'm not telling you, I'm asking. Right? In all things, we are mighty. We all have the capacity to evolve, to create, to forgive, to open, to know, to exalt, to be generous, to be abundant. This is just 10 out of 99. And I'm sure there's way more than 99. It's just we give thanks to Islam for doing the work to come up with 99 attributes. So I found a picture that has 77 out of the 99. And I circled some of the ones that I really like the appreciative. Wow, what if we were appreciative? The responsive. The firm one. What if we made a decision and held firm? The eternal one. We act like everything is going to last forever, but we're the only thing that's going to last forever. These situations are completely temporary. The source of all goodness, the eternal, the aware. It's beautiful, right? What if we can't remember to do this, and we just thought about God, and we just thought about some or many of the attributes of God? What if we produced our own list? Because, I mean, this is just what Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, brought to the followers of Islam. If we think the 360 degrees of knowledge, not all of this is not it. And sorry to disappoint anybody, but Spiritism ain't all 360 degrees either. There's a whole infinite wheel of knowledge. We only got slices. So it's good to see what other pieces of the pie have to offer us. You don't have to eat it, but at least look at it and examine it for something that might be useful for you. Because at the end of the day, we know from the one book that y'all do believe in, right, where we're told, be still and know that I am God. Not be still and know that he is God. Be still and know that I am God. That's my invitation to you all. Consider that and see if you can find it true within yourself. So that's what I have for you today. I thank you all very much. I hope that if you learned anything of value, please consider sharing it with someone else.